This is Middlesex Moments. I'm Jonathan Daube, Interim President of Middlesex Community College. And my guest today is Dr. Michael Frechette, Superintendent in Middletown. And I think congratulations are in order. As we tape this, I read in the Hartford Courant that the University of Connecticut is handing over several millions to you, or giving you an award, or something. What's going on?
Numerous millions.
Yeah.
I received my doctorate up at UConn in 1987, and actually last May I was awarded the NEAC School of Education the Outstanding Superintendent Award. So sometimes
That's
it takes
great.
the press to catch on a little bit, but it's fine. It's actually quite an honor to receive that from the university. It's the highest award that they present, and as I said before, it's a direct reflection of the dedication, effort, and hard work of our teachers, administrators, parents, students, and the community.
Well, that's great, but you should take some credit for that.
Yeah.
What was your doctoral dissertation on?
It was actually on in 1985. The state, in their wisdom, told every 169 districts that they need to develop a 5-year professional development plan. But they forgot to ask districts to evaluate the effectiveness of their plan and their outcomes. So I measured...
It sounds familiar.
It does, doesn't it? Another unfunded mandate.
Yeah.
So I decided to take a look at, in the CREC region, there was 39 towns at the time.
Right.
And I looked at 31 plans and measured them against some variables. And long story short, it's more of the intangibles, the subtleties and nuances and commitment to professional development and change that actually matter.
And I'm sure your doctoral dissertation, like all of them, is being read constantly by people.
You know, it's it's collecting dust like
Like mine,
everybody else,
yes.
like yours. But the intent of it was to get published one article, and I did. So
I'm talking to Dr. Michael Frechette, and this is Middlesex Moments. I'm Jonathan Daube, and we'll be back moments. This is Middlesex Moments. I'm Jonathan Daube, Interim President of Middlesex Community College, and my guest today is Dr. Michael Frechette, Superintendent of Schools in Middletown. How long have you been a superintendent?
this is my 6th year.
6th year in Middletown.
In
And
Middletown.
before that you were...
I was 8 years in Norwich and 3 years up in St. Johnsbury, Vermont, where I'm sure this rain is coming down in that white stuff falling from the sky.
As superintendent?
As
So this is
superintendent.
your third superintendency?
Correct.
So let me ask you, how do you know when you've done a good job?
That's a good question. You know, you
I mean,
said-
never mind what the other people say. How do
Yeah.
you know deep down that you've done a good job?
Well, that's an interesting question because you have to, you can't measure it on a day-to-day basis.
Right.
Because typically when folks call the superintendent's office, they're not calling to say, hey, geez, Michael, you're doing a great job. You know, they've been through
Right.
the proper protocol to deal with issues. And that's part of the job. That's just what comes of it. I think how I feel if I've been successful is a ongoing discussion I have with myself. And you need to take a look at the big picture and to see where we started 6 years ago. And when I came here, Jonathan, I put together an entry plan where I took a look at all of the strengths and areas of concern and areas of growth. And if you take a look at it on a yearly basis, and then after 5 years and 6 years, you know, you have to take. We built a new high school. We've been a flagship for school reform, closing the achievement gap, and we've really started to change the culture, climate, and atmosphere in the school system and in the city. You know, we're able to be successful. We're able now to have courageous conversations where before we couldn't. And I
When you
think
say courageous conversations, what kinds of issues?
to take a
Get
look
talked
at
about.
the achievement gap, to take a look at the socioeconomic status of students, to realize that all students can learn, all students can be successful, and to do away with the stereotypes of the self-fulfilling prophecy of why kids can't learn, and really have that conversation not only in the with our faculty and staff, but with the public. And that was a challenge initially when I first came here.
Because people have to be relaxed enough that they can listen to someone they might disagree with.
And that's, I think we've been able to do that. We're definitely able to do it within our school community, where initially it was a challenge. And now we can have conversations that we couldn't have 3-4 years ago in our district data team. But it's sometimes when you see our elected officials, not only locally but statewide and nationally, the level of civility is sometimes lacking, and that trickles down.
Right.
And that's all you see on TV all the time. And dealing with some of our parents, adults, is probably the biggest challenge we have. And,
so you see yourself as an educator not only of the children in your school system, but the parents and family members also.
Absolutely. And you've been in education a few years, and you've probably heard the
Longer
phrase,
than you.
You've probably heard the phrase that if the kids aren't the problem, it's the adults.
I've always felt if I could wave a magic wand, I would get the parents of the preschoolers and the first and second graders in for a week or two.
Yep.
And then the rest would just be easy.
And that's, I've been a huge proponent of high quality early intervention. I taught preschool, I taught kindergarten, my master's in early childhood, and people ask me if you could do one thing, what would you do? And to really transform public education, and I've said publicly numerous times that I put all my resources into high quality early intervention, period. And
I still remember when I first came to Connecticut in 1987 to a presidency at Manchester Community College, and a local rep who's still there, Jack Thompson, said to me, community colleges will always come second for me. I said, what do you mean? What do you mean? Why not first? Well, early childhood comes first.
Sure.
And I said to him, as a citizen, I agree with you. And as president of MCC, I will never publicly disagree with you. He was right.
Absolutely.
He was absolutely right. He was right
Yeah.
then. He's right today. Now, you're in your third superintendency. Your first one was in Vermont, the second one in Norwich, right?
Yep.
Look back, if you will, on your first two superintendencies. What was the single most difficult decision you ever had to make?
Probably reducing programs that I know that work and that were effective.
And reducing them for financial reasons?
For
or?
financial reasons, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's, we've been doing that. We're going to be doing it in the next few months. And it's unfortunate that you have to do that, and you get past all the rhetoric and all of the folks that have the one agenda. And you don't want to sound like Joan of Arc, but the reason we do this, and we do it for kids. And unfortunately, sometimes folks have a different agenda, and the students suffer in the long run.
Well, all of us want more, but we don't want to pay for it.
That's true, and I think we were talking earlier that as superintendent and president of higher ed institutions, our job is to find sunshine in all situations, because otherwise
Yes.
it'd be very depressing. It may be an opportunity to rethink not only the tax structure, but how we have historically done things.
So in Middletown, I'm kind of interested, where are the main pressure points? Are they for the arts or for sports or for full-day kindergarten? I mean, where are the pressure points in Middletown?
We have a terrific early childhood committees and push. We have full-day kindergarten. We do a lot with preschool. In Norwich, actually, we had full-day preschool for all students. It was interesting, but it's a whole different discussion. Our fine arts are fantastic. The athletic program has really turned around. They're doing a super job. And our whole data team and our closing the achievement gap, our class size, our buildings they're all in good shape. And we've been doing it with, blood, sweat, and tears. Our past 2 years, our budgets have been zero. Our teachers, administrators, and central office have all stepped up and didn't take a step increase or a salary increase.
So if it comes to reducing programs, I'm not asking you to announce here what you're going to cut, but what kinds of things are on the table for discussion?
They're all going to be on the table for discussion. I've learned this a long time ago. You're not going to please everybody. Everybody has their programs that they love, and quite frankly, I believe that they're all core areas, whether it's fine arts, athletics, academics, preschool, kindergarten. I mean, everybody has their reason why they want to come to school.
So if you make, let's say you have I'm talking theoretically,
Sure.
of course, if you have to decide between, let's say, the fine arts and sports, does it make a difference how many people show up at a school board meeting and, where the noise is,
Yeah.
so to speak?
It doesn't for me, because, and when it's all said and done, they all go home, but I have to live it. We have to live it.
Yes.
So you try to, and it's a difficult thing. You try to have some equity. Nothing's ever going to be equal. I mean, that's a
Right.
fantasy that people think that everything's going to be equal. It's not. So you try to have some equity, and some programs are bigger than others. And 88% of our budget's in labor-related costs. So
Correct.
when you're reduced, guess what has to go? So you take a look at everything. You don't target. I wouldn't recommend targeting one area. So if you can show that you've reduced in a variety of different areas, that's the best you can do.
But that's the kind of thing where certainly you would make recommendations, and
Yes.
hopefully they would be listened to.
Yep.
But the school board is the final arbiter, aren't they?
It's their final decision. Where we are right now, the mayor's going to present his budget April 1st, and then we go down to the Common Council at the end of April to present our budget and discuss that with the council, which I actually love doing. They ask interesting questions, and they're genuinely interested, and they've been very supportive, given the economy. Granted, we have a zero increase in the past 2 years, but I'm also realistic of what we can and can't get. So, and then the council votes on the budget on or before May 15th, and then we'll have to adapt to what we get.
So salaries, professional salaries, that kind of thing, get negotiated after May 15th or before?
We're actually going to be negotiating this summertime. The teacher's contract is a 1.9% increase for next year, and they've had a 0% this year. 1.9 is really pittance
Yep.
in the
I
budget,
think so,
but it's
yeah.
and they've been fair. They've been good. They stepped up. We can't.
Yeah, that's good to
people
hear.
have worked well together.
This is Middlesex Moments. I'm Jonathan Daube, and we'll be back momentarily. This is Middlesex Moments. I'm Jonathan Daube, Interim President of Middlesex Community College, and my guest today is Dr. Michael Frechette, Superintendent of Schools in Middletown. And this is your third superintendency, your second in Connecticut.
That's correct.
So you know where all the bodies are. So that's where all the bodies are buried. So I'm going to ask you a question about fellow superintendents.
Sure.
There are a lot of superintendents in Connecticut, and I've observed that their terms are shorter and shorter. It's kind of sad.
Yeah.
The typical superintendent lasts, I think, 3.5 years in a particular district. And then they tend to pop up somewhere. I mean, there's a movement around the state of superintendents, and the 2 or 3 former superintendents, retired superintendents, who are consultants and who kind of place them wherever. How is it possible to do a decent job in 3.5 years? Your first year, you're learning what the community is like, and presumably your last year, you're kind of getting nervous and thinking about moving on. What's happening to the superintendency? Not you particularly,
Sure.
but what's
Actually,
happening there?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, and our superintendent's group just put out a survey. I'll talk about that in a second. Actually, the average tenure for an urban superintendent is 2.5 years. And it's unfortunate because one of the, I understand a little bit about the change process and trying to lead with reform efforts. And
Should we just change the title of superintendent to scapegoat
Yeah, that happened.
in the urban areas?
Yeah, but the problem is, if with the revolving door of superintendents, it kills the initiatives and the change process. You need folks that are going to be stable and work through the difficult situations, which we've done here in Middletown, for educational reform, because otherwise you hear this too shall pass, and they just wait and wait it out and wait it out, and then folks go. Interesting stat that by the year 2014, 56% of the current superintendents will be vacant. That's 3 years away, which is unfortunate because you need the continuity, especially in urban
Now, is the
settings.
same happening to the principalship, or do principals last a little longer?
Principals last a little bit longer. I mean, the superintendent is a lightning rod. We're talking about taking some praise for the award, and I'm not in the
And for
job.
those who just joined us, you got a very major award from the
Yeah.
University of Connecticut. Yeah,
It's
okay.
good. It's good for the city too. But we typically don't get credit when things go well and get blamed for everything that goes wrong, and that's just the nature of the position. I'm not complaining by any means. That's just the way it works. Actually, my hair was black when I started 5 years ago, and but it's
This is on radio, not TV.
Yeah, I
They
know.
can't see us.
Yeah, but it's interesting that it's unfortunate because all the literature and all the research and in the change process in school reform is that you need a consistent message, a consistent.
I'm not asking you to comment on the Middletown School Board, because after all, you work for them. But overall, do school boards understand that they need stability in the superintendent's position, and that unless the person is just terrible,
Right.
they really should hang in with a superintendent for a while.
Some do, some don't. It's like everywhere you go, and you work with the board as well, and some people are on for a single issue, and it's much more complicated than that. It's very involved. It's not hard, but it's complicated.
Is there a training process that new school board members have to go through?
There is, CABE has a
CABE is
Connecticut Association
of Boards of Education, right? Okay.
has an orientation, and it's difficult, because I wasn't born, didn't grow up here in Middletown. I grew up in New Haven, right down the street, and the folks that get on school boards sometimes have to deal with difficult situations, especially now with the economy and programs, and nobody wants to see things taken away or reduced or cut or positions eliminated. But it's it's a difficult situation, and
Now, overall, do school boards get nominated by parties, or do they come on, because somebody is particularly interested in some issue or in education in general?
Yeah, I think both. They're usually nominated by their parties, and or they can petition. But it's that's at least I get paid to get beaten up. School board members don't get paid in Connecticut, so it's a tough job, and it's we try to respond and help. I've been doing this all my life. This is what I know or know a little bit about it.
You say you've been doing it all your life, but I bet that at age 18, when you were finishing high school, you didn't say to yourself, "I want to be a school superintendent."
No, I always
You
wanted-
probably knew you wanted to go into education. How soon? How early in your life did you know you wanted to be an educator?
Always. I always
really?
wanted, yeah. Actually, my dad says, when you were growing up, you always said you wanted to be a teacher, and even before I could even remember, and so I've always been involved in.
So take us
in
back to
education.
that. You were in high school. You wanted to be a teacher. Was it a particular teacher there that influenced you in that?
No, I just liked helping people,
Mm-hmm.
and I grew up in a family of 7 kids, and always been around, and it's just something that.
Now, did
always-
any of the other 6 go into teaching?
No, they're all lawyers.
Are you serious?
Yeah, and a judge too, and So now I'm the only educator in the family.
So at least if you get in trouble, you can hire a good lawyer. So that's 7 kids growing up in New Haven. You went to public high school?
No, actually, I went to St. Aidan's.
Okay, yeah. And you already knew you wanted to be a teacher.
Yeah.
So take us through, where'd you go to college?
I went to Hiram College out in Ohio. It's a small liberal arts college, and at the time it was probably the top 7 teacher training colleges in the country. And in fact, it got so popular, they had to really cut it back because it's a liberal arts college, and it was getting
I've heard of it. Is it
too
southern
well
or
known.
northern Ohio?
Northeast corner of
Okay.
the state.
Yep,
And
yep.
and it was beautiful countryside there, and I loved Midwest people are so friendly. I really enjoyed
What
it.
made you decide to go there in the first place?
Um,
Did you want to
actually-
get away from home a little bit? Or?
Yeah, well, my dad said, "Listen, it's 4 years. Try a different part of the country." And so we went out and visited Heidelberg and also Hiram College. I just was flipping through the book, and we went out, and I fell in love with the place.
So then you came back to Connecticut? Did
Yeah,
you?
I actually the first teacher training was children's literature. Actually, they get you out in school, and 1 day a week for a couple hours. And I remember I was petrified to go read a kitty lit book in a 3rd grade class. So as soon as you decided you didn't want to take an education class, they had you right out in the field. It was terrific.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Then came back. Actually, I taught my first class was down in Southern Maryland. I taught special ed, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade class, and then I came back to Connecticut.
And not to be flip about it, I bet teaching special ed is very good training for administration because
Yeah,
it teaches you patience.
Actually, I think being trained in the area of special education, I also trained as a reading specialist as well. I think is the best training you can get. I was a director of special ed for 6 years, and I think that's probably the most difficult position in education, director of special education, in administration anyway.
I would think so.
Yeah,
I would
it's
think
difficult. But I taught everything from preschool through university.
So then, where'd you go to graduate school?
Done Sacred Heart
Okay.
down in Fairfield. I have a master's in early childhood. And then Southern Connecticut, my 6th year in administration. And then UConn, I went full-time in 2 years and got my doctorate up there.
And then, were you ever a principal before you became a superintendent?
I was director of special ed.
And went from there to being a school superintendent.
Director of special ed to assistant superintendent to superintendency.
So in the last minute or two that we have, what do you want to accomplish in Middletown in the next 5 years? Let's not talk about the next few months. The next 5 years, what's your legacy going to be?
Well, I'm going to continue with our the district data team process that we have, and really get that to work independently at all the schools, and continue to close the achievement gap. And continue.
Is it beginning to close, would you say?
We're actually a flagship of how to close the achievement gap, not only here in the state but nationally. Our scores, after the 2nd year I was here, started. We have a trend of increasing and closing the achievement gap. We've done a nice job.
That's important. Is that documented someplace?
Yes, it's actually Larry Ainsworth, who's a nationally school reform expert, has dedicated Chapter 16 to Middletown, and the state uses us as a model all the time.
So, I'm not announcing that you're retiring in 5 years or anything like
7.
that, but okay, I hope nobody's listening to that. So in 5 years or so, you will be able to show that the achievement gap has lessened significantly in this town, and in ways that other people can learn from.
And they currently, school districts from all over the state and the country come in to observe what we do here in Middletown.
That's very exciting.
It
I
is
hope
very
I
exciting.
hope that gets publicly known, because
Yeah.
that's difficult work.
Yeah.
That's not closing school or not closing on a snow day, which
Sure.
people get mad, but
Yeah.
it's over in a day. That's important work. So this has been Middlesex Moments. My guest has been Dr. Michael Frechette, Superintendent of Schools in Middletown, closing the achievement gap as we speak. take a look at our website, mxcc.comnet, COMM, two M's, net.edu. I'm Jonathan Daube, Interim President of Middlesex Community College. Have a good day.